Hi, I'm David Garfield, and I want to tell you about Tune for Tony. This is a song that I wrote in honor of the great Tony Williams. He was one of the greatest jazz drummers of all time, or just greatest drummers of all time. And many of the guys that I work with, the heavyweight drummers around the world, are all influenced by him. Tony Williams started out as a youngster in New York. His father took him around to all the jazz clubs, and he was like a little nerdy kid with a big set of drumsticks, very thick, and they all wondered who he was. And then he eventually got his break and blew everybody's minds. He was mostly known for being in the Miles Davis Quintet, his classic quintet with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock and Ron Carter. But he also started the Tony Williams Lifetime, which was more of a fusion band, and had guitarist John McLaughlin, who was also part of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, also one of the greater fusion bands of all time. Both Greg Bissonette and Vinnie Colaiuta, who are two of my favorite drummers that I work with a lot, were tremendously influenced by Tony Williams. And even Greg took lessons from Tony at one point. Vinnie spent time at one of Tony's concerts under the drum riser, looking up at him and watching his every move.
Years ago, I was up in the Bay Area and I looked on Bay Area magazine and I saw Tony Williams accepting private drum students. And I said, you gotta be kidding. And when I left him a message, thank God, his wife Colleen was great friends back from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with my roommate and great pal Mark Cranny, legendary drummer. So Tony called and said, come on up. I ended up taking lessons with him for a couple of years. I would drive up to where they lived and go to the guest house and play. We even played double drums once, and we even did a drum clinic together.
They were very affected by him, and when he passed away, we were all working together, and they were quite sad, so I kind of decided to create this song and dedicate it to Tony Williams. We decided that Greg and Vinnie would play on it, and the idea came to me to create a drum part that could be played by two different drummers together would make up what one drummer would play. So one night I was working at Cafe Cordial here in Sherman Oaks, close to where I live in Los Angeles.
I was at Cafe Cordial, and my drum hero Vinnie Colaiuta was there too.
And we were sitting at the bar after the gig talking, and we came up with the pattern.
And David wrote on a napkin.
Some of the greatest ideas have been written out on cocktail napkins.
So one guy goes, doom, doom, da, doom, doom, da, and the other guy's,
you know, ba-doom, 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 boom. It was like a two bass drum pattern, and we split it between the two.
What an honor to do a double drum track with Vinnie and have it be for one of our heroes, the great Tony Williams.
Then the next project became scheduling a time where they were both available in a studio. And we came to a date in Calabasas, California, a studio called Castle Oaks. And wonderful engineer that does wonderful drum work, Steve Sykes, figured out how to record them and have them in separate rooms. And we had a ball recording this.
Working on Tune for Tony was probably one of the most fun and challenging projects I've ever worked on. The fact that we had two drummers playing together with everything choreographed and worked out, where everything, it just fit like a puzzle. It was really wonderful to work on.
I met Greg Bissonette in the early 80s in Los Angeles. He'd just gotten off the road with Maynard Ferguson Band, and he was looking to get connected in town, and he came to see me play at the Baked Potato with my band Charisma, which Carlos Vega was the drummer of. And later we started playing with Brandon Fields' group together. It was the original band was Walt Fowler, Brandon Fields, John Patitucci, myself, and Greg. Over time, he told me that Vinny Colaiuta was his favorite drummer and that he'd actually moved to LA in hopes of getting to know him. Vinny had played in my band Charisma for many years, and we were very close. Over time, the two of them got to meet each other, but it's really a thrill of mine that I was able to organize a session for Greg to play with Vinny, because I knew how much a fan of Vinny he was. And they had the fanship of Tony Williams as something they had in common. So it was really fun to see them get together that day in the studio, talking, looking at each other's drums, telling stories, looking at the drumsticks, like, you use this drumstick, I use this drumstick, and all that kind of stuff. This track, with those two on drums and Jimmy Johnson playing the bass, just the four of us, and I think we did about 9 takes. I loved take number 7, but Greg asked me if we could do a couple more because they were still fine-tuning a couple of elements. But at the end of the day, we came up with this masterpiece. Jimmy Johnson is one of the greatest bass players, and he specializes in fretless bass, and he's amazing on the fretless. He plays the first bass solo, and having him on this track was a real treat. He had great chemistry with both Vinny and Greg and myself, and we had a ball. In addition to Jimmy Johnson, we had the great Will Lee play bass on this, and he played a piccolo bass. So he played higher register parts, and he used some effects and a distortion pedal so that he actually sounds more like the guitars and blends in with the guitars. There's a stack of guitar and of Luke's guitars and Will's piccolo bass through distortion together. Also, Will did a solo using lots of effects on his piccolo bass, which was not really predominant in the original version of this that came out some years ago. It was mixed very far in the back to sound like a distant noise. On this release, we've actually put it out into the front so you can really hear what Will's playing. It's really nice to have both Will and Jimmy contrast each other. Back in the day, we played the Baked Potato here in Los Angeles, and one night we did a gig when Eddie Van Halen wanted to play with us. And so we got Eddie, Steve Lukather, and Michael Landau, another guitarist that was in Charisma off and on over the years. And we got all 3 of them together with Carlos Vega and myself. And Will was going to be in town, but he could only make 1 set. So we set up the gig such that Jimmy played 1 set, and then Will came in and played the other set. The 2 of them shared the bass duties that night on that gig. You know, for the guitar parts, I really wanted to bring in my longtime collaborator and good friend, Steve Lukather. Steve and I met when he was a senior in high school. I came out to LA in 1974. He came and jammed with me, and then I followed him as he joined Toto, and we eventually had a band together called Los Lobotomies. We played all over the world. And we had a tremendous following in LA. Steve and I wrote a lot of music together. We recorded a lot together, played together, hung out. We've been friends a long time, and I've had tremendous respect for him. It was great to have him come in and be a part of this track. We brought Luke up to Simon Phillips' studio to record the guitar. Simon was also a good friend of ours and the drummer of Los Lobotomies at the time.
My name is Simon Phillips. I was very lucky to have an interesting friendship with Tony. I first met Tony in 1977. I was playing with the Jack Bruce Band. Jack introduced me. That was our first meeting. He didn't say much. He watched the show. I think the next time I met Tony was probably in 1983 with Jack again. he was playing the Leverkusen Jazz Festival, and Tony was really friendly. And then the next time was in 1985, I believe, at Zildjian Day in Dallas. I had the, I would say, rather unfortunate experience of having to follow Tony after he played. This performance of Tony's is mind-boggling, and I learned so much from just that one performance. This tune with David Garfield and with Steve Lukather playing, I believe I recorded the guitars.
Simon is also another world famous drummer, and he had a great studio and was quite good at engineering. So we overdubbed Luke's guitars. Some of the parts we tripled or even quadrupled, but we got a huge sound.
When we play this live, I do put myself in that, Tony Williams spell and try to imagine how would Tony play this. It's also a technique I've used throughout my whole career, because you're still you, but you're channeling maybe an approach that another drummer would take. I guess you could say it's method musicianing.
So the melody for Tune for Tony is quite difficult. It goes over quite a big range. It kind of goes in big intervals all over, up and down the range of the instrument. So now the challenge was, who would play the melody on Tune for Tony? I thought of only one person that could do it, the great Michael Brecker. One of my favorite musicians, tremendous influence on me. I had been wanting to record with him, and this was a perfect opportunity to reach out. We got a time that he would be available in New York City, and then I needed to find a studio, and I wanted to get his brother Randy to come play too, so it was a little bit of juggling. Both Mike and Randy had separate managers, and I had to deal with them separately, but I was able to line up a time that they could both be there. And my good friend and one of our frequent bass collaborators, Will Lee, he had a home studio in his apartment down in the Village, and he offered for us to record there.
I'm minding my own business, and I get a phone call from my dear friend, David Garfield. He says, I'm coming to New York. Can I record at your home studio? Some bass and the Brecker brothers.
So Mike and Randy and Will all go way back to the days of Dreams, which was a great New York band, and the Brecker Brothers band. So it was like a reunion. We were up in Willie's bedroom with the two horn players set up.
I have a great room for recording bass. I didn't have an ideal room for the Brecker brothers, so we just stuck them in the bedroom. It was a great idea at the time, and the song sounds incredible.
And Will's friend or engineer was running the board, and we were yelling back and forth through the walls. It was a great day, a great session, a lot of storytelling, a lot of laughing, clowning around, but Michael Brecker just killed it. He got it real quick. He only had to punch in a couple times, and he let me know where all the mistakes were in the copying. He said, you ought to fire your copyist, and I said, oh, that's me. I had used digital performer files to print from, so there was some discrepancies, but boy, did he do a great job.
I was still cleaning up from Randy's spit valve for the next couple of years after that. I have to say, it was worth it.
He told me how truly challenging it was for him to play, and he's a virtuoso. So to this date, whenever I perform this song with any of the other great saxophone players that I work with, they all tell me how challenging it is. We've played it with Eric Marienthal, Bob Shepard, Brandon Fields, Larry Klimas. Yeah, they all let me know what a challenge it is, and to try to do justice to it and do the kind of job Michael Brecker did is quite challenging. So. Colaiuta is considered to be one of the greatest drummers in the world today, and possibly of all time. I had the pleasure of meeting Vinny in 1979. We were playing at the Baked Potato with my band Charisma. Carlos Vega was on drums, and Vinny came in to check us out. He was working with Frank Zappa. He had taken Terry Bozzio's place, and he was sitting in the back at the bar in the corner. I can still visualize it. Carlos and I went up to say hello. That was the beginning of a relationship that's gone on for many decades. The following week, Carlos was gone, but we had a sub drummer, and Vinny came back again, and I asked him if he'd like to sit in, and he said, sure. You know, and a little caveat, in LA back in those days, people really didn't ask you to sit in from the Midwest, and we do that back there, and in New York they do that, but in LA it was a little more closed. So to be invited to sit in was kind of a special deal, and he was appreciative. Came up to the stage, and we decided where we're going to play, and in my band Charisma, we did all original music, but we did 2 Weather Report covers. And we had one in the book called Young and Fine, and Steve Gadd had played on the original recording. I said to Vinny, what about this Weather Report tune called Young and Fine? He said, sure. And he pulled out the chart, we counted it off, and it was magic, just magic. And the whole place, heads dropped. Who is this guy? Vinny Colaiuta, mostly known as Vinny. You say Vinny, and they know you're talking about Vinny Colaiuta. We asked him to take over the drum chair while Carlos was on tour. A substitute is what we call him, a sub. We had a ball. Everybody in town found out about it, and drummers would come and they'd sit behind Vinny, and we used to call him the drum jury, and they'd watch him play, but he was just awesome. We continued to play in Charisma, and then I watched Vinny's career take off as he joined Jeff Beck, Gino Vanelli, Sting, Herbie Hancock. Over the years, he's played with everybody, and is very well respected. I still remember those humble days when we would drive around in his Aston Martin with the roof open and his yellow Gretsch kit in the car, and we'd leave it at Casa Vega with open roof, unattended, while we go eat. He'd constantly be playing with the drumstick on the dashboard when we drove. This song really is perfect for him. It really gets to show his creativity as well as his technique and his innovativeness. There's a section at the end which was taken from take 7 and spliced onto the end of take 9, which is the one we used, where Vinny transposes the time into a different meter and then slowly comes back to the original tempo. And he's a genius when it comes to this. Vinny made this song special, and Vinny and Greg together made it even more special. And it's a very fond memory that we all have of working together to create magic and music and honor the great Tony Williams. To re-release it now with a new mix and some extended sections, some recording from Michael Brecker that was not originally on the original release, is quite thrilling and very exciting for me and everybody here at Queechee Records.